Hello and welcome to Board Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing Secrets of the Lost Station by Everything Epic Games. This is a game for 1 to 6 players that plays in anywhere from 60 to 240 minutes. It's a scenario-based game, so whenever you choose what scenario you're going to play, you're going to know about how much time it's going to take. This is a re-theme and an upgrade from Secrets of the Lost Temple, if you've ever played this one. So here we have sort of our component list. Again, this is a scenario and campaign game, so you're going to be not only playing games, but also unlocking components as you play. So you've got a little sheet here that's going to tell you what components you should leave when you're just starting and what you'll need for the first few scenarios. We got our rule book here. There's no spoilers in here, just component lists, setup, and your basic rules. We got just some little poster cards here. Here's your station board. So the station, you're going to have a scenario card that'll tell you your objectives for that particular scenario. And then you'll have cards usually here that will be particular to that scenario, and it's things that the station can do during that scenario. Got some different scenario cards here. Here we have our character cards. So characters have several different stats: audacity, power, which is basically experience. You have courage and stamina, which is also your health. Each character also has a once per game ability, and then several different stats. And these are going to be the number of dice you roll whenever you do a stat check. So down here in the bottom right, this is combat. So anytime you fight, this character is going to roll 3 dice. You can see that there's plenty of options for characters. And then you have the station here as well. So at a certain point, the station may come under attack, so the station has its own stats. We've got dice here. These are the basic dice for stat checks. This is what you'll typically be rolling. You have successes are the guns, and then double successes. You have some blanks. These are successes if you use audacity to turn them into successes. So you can basically turn your stats into successes. And then you have critical failure as well. We have some D6s, just because at certain points you may be required to roll a D6 for a random result. So some D6s there. Some standees, because this is a standee edition, this isn't the miniature edition. And then we've got some cubes. We've got some storybooks here. So each character has their own sort of story adventure or background that you can explore while you're playing. I'm not going to show you any of these because it kind of gives away character stories. But as your character advances or runs into certain events, they may trigger one of their background stories, which you'll read from this book. We've got cards here. So there's several different types of cards in this game. I'll just go ahead and pull them all and we'll take a look at them. So here we have the encounter cards or monster cards, whatever you want to call them, for the different enemies in the game. They're all the same back. So enemies do have a type. So this one's ancient. It's also a boss. But let's look at one of the standard ones. So here we go. Here we have a grunt. The grunt's human. They have a special ability up here. If they exceed the number of explorers in a room, they deal double damage. They have a certain amount of movement. They have a certain amount of health, and they deal automatic damage. The way damage works in this game is if you ever attack an enemy and you don't receive a certain number of successes, so in this case 3, you will automatically take the amount of damage. That also happens when they attack you. So when a monster attacks your character, you are going to resolve a fight just as if you attacked them. And again, if you don't receive a certain amount of successes, you take automatic damage. The game also comes with some damage track cards. Because there'll often be multiples of the same enemy on the board, you've got these cards just to keep track of which ones have dealt damage. So you'll put this card here, and then the grunt with the 1 on it. So the standee will have a 1 on it. That's where you'll track the damage you did to it. So we got a couple of these, and then we've got the scenario cards. So there's a card for every scenario. On the front side, it's going to tell you objectives for that particular scenario. And then on the back, it's going to tell you when to trigger certain events during the course of the scenario. We've got more of those here because there are a total of 92 scenarios in the base game. So quite a few scenario cards to go through. So we've got some mini card packs here. We've got some items here. So item cards will have this symbol on the back. Essentially, you'll have to search to find them. They have a certain number of uses, and then they obviously have certain effects. I'm not going to go through a bunch of these because, again, a lot of this is going to be stuff that you're going to find throughout the course of the game. So you don't necessarily want to know about it right away. I will show you, however, other small cards here are ability cards. So each character is going to start the game with abilities and then sometimes combat cards. And there are 2 different ways that these can upgrade, essentially. So at the start of the game, you're going to be unfocused. If your courage, one of your stats, ever increases to 5 or higher, which you do by fighting enemies, you become focused and you'll get the better ability here. If your power ever reaches 11, which again is your experience, you'll level up and you'll have the choice of leveling up one of your abilities. Either if you only have 1, obviously you'll choose that one. But if you have 2, you'll pick from 1 and it will become a level 2, which is a better ability with another focused upgrade. We got quite a few of those. In the back here, we've got some other Explorer cards, which we won't get into because it might be spoiler material. So getting back to the box here, we got this top area to get rid of. So this is the station track. And what you'll do here is in this box, there'll be little cardboard punch outs, and those will take the spots of the station track. Each scenario will tell you how to fill up that station track. These are the character boards. So when you're playing a character, you'll slot their card into this board, and now you have the 4 tracks to keep track of their stamina, audacity, power, and courage, and some slots down here to put their ability cards. A bunch of extra bags, which are always helpful to have. You have your scenario book, which is quite thick, because again, 92 scenarios in this game. I will show you one scenario out of this book at the end. Let's get through the rest of the box. In case you don't want to have that scenario spoiled, you can tune away. And finally, at the bottom of the box, we're going to have a whole bunch of cardboard, not only for the pieces. These are just generic tokens. Whenever you have an item that has multiple uses, you'll use these tokens to keep track of them. We've got some damage tokens. This is good punchboard. It punches out easily. We've got room tiles. So here are the different rooms, the breached hole, the blaster turrets. And these will be laid out from left to right in a certain order, depending on your scenario. And then we've got the standees for the monsters here. And again, everything punches out really well here. So here are these circular pieces that I told you about earlier that are going to go onto the station board. And some of these are random events. So this is an explorer event. You'll set up a scenario with a certain number of these tokens, certain number and type. So there are scenario events, there are explorer events, station events. I'll show you on the back here. And there's even some blanks. So these blue ones will be put out randomly on this board, and the scenario will tell you how many and what type. The combat and the scenario trigger ones will be put out in particular areas, but those are always the same event. It's either the event for your particular scenario or the combat event simply means triggering all the monsters on the board. Again, more ship tiles or station tiles and more enemies. We got some specialty tokens here, some search tokens. If there's a search token in an area, you can search it for items or whatnot. You got some quest tokens. Typically in a scenario, you'll have a quest, so these tokens will just keep track of how many successes you have on that quest. We've got more of the same. Again, we get to the characters themselves, which are down here, but more punchboard for rooms, your starting ship, characters, monsters, and so on. So that's it. That's everything you're going to get in a copy of Secrets of the Lost Station. This again is the standee version. There is a miniature version. So if you have that, it's obviously going to be different. Stick around and I'll show you one of the scenarios from the book and give you a kind of a deeper understanding of how to play the game. So here we have a look at the scenario book. And the first thing I'm going to show you is just the campaign tracker here. Just to let you know which campaigns you've completed. You can check off which ones you have or have not completed. It also tells you what page to find them on. Just a nice little guide for you to keep track of your campaign and also to help you find what you're looking for in the book. So let's go ahead and flip to one of the scenarios here. This is scenario 4 called Engineer. And so the first thing you're going to get is you're going to get the basic setup for the scenario. So this one tells you that you have to play with Nakatomi. That's one of the characters. You can play with up to 6 people. It's fine to play, one person playing multiple characters. It's not a problem. The game works well in that way. But you have to include Nakatomi with whatever lineup you choose. Then each character, each explorer is going to choose an item. So there are starting items that have this particular card back, and you're going to be able to pick from those cards. And then you're going to set aside certain items. These items will come up during the campaign, most likely, or during the scenario, I should say. So it's just nice to be able to not have to, go through a deck of cards when they come up. They tell you to just go ahead and set them aside. And then you're going to choose, for this one, you're going to choose one system shuffle matching tile into the top 15 of stack. Basically what this means is you're going to randomly choose a station tile. Now you're going to choose this from a selection of cards. There are station cards in the game. You're going to shuffle up those station cards. You're going to draw one randomly. And that's going to tell you a particular tile that you're then going to add to the stack. The way the setup works is you're going to put out a certain number of tiles at the beginning of the game, which it shows here, the starting layout. So you're going to have Icarus, which is your ship, attached to the docking station. So Icarus is going to start all the way to the left, over here, say, and then the docking station, so on and so forth, until you have all of these 9 tiles laid out. Off to the side, you're going to have another stack of tiles, which is essentially the rest of the tiles in the game. But those first 15 tiles are going to be a little special. They're going to include this one tile that you've chosen randomly, and then potentially more, which you can actually see here, the set aside tiles. So you're going to have all the tiles in the game. You're going to have these 9 tiles laid out. You're going to have these 2 tiles set aside, plus this third tile. With all the tiles that aren't already on the board, you're going to shuffle them up and put them in a stack. Then you're going to pick up the top 12, add these 3 tiles to them to make 15, shuffle those up to ensure that those top 15 tiles are on the top of the deck. Then it tells you the scenario creatures. So you will use different creatures during a scenario, more than just these, because you'll have random setups. So for instance, it tells you here in the starting layout, like when you put out the storage bay, you're going to put 3 search tokens on it. Well, when you put out the holding cell, you're also going to spawn 2 random creatures on it. Those creatures will not be grunts. You'll just pull cards from the monster deck. And so you say there's a Cosmos in the holding bay. He actually won't be there because he's a boss, but you'll randomly deal out creatures for this startup, this starting layout. But these creatures are specific to the scenario, so they have to be out there. Then you get to the scenario events, which we talked about the scenario board earlier. It tells you how to lay out the scenario board, and then it tells you what tiles to put in specifically. So all these little blue tiles that you see here are going to be some combination of these 3. You're going to pull out a certain number of these tiles, shuffle them up randomly so you don't know where they're going, and put them out where you see the blue ones. The yellow and the red ones are just going to go out onto this scenario, this station track, the way it's shown on here. So that's all the setup. Whenever you play a game, you're going to start with the setup, and then you'll get over here, and this is more of the story aspect of the game. So you've got an overview here, tells you difficulty, game length. You've got a summary and a star date, just sort of storyline information. Then you've got your particular objectives, your win and loss conditions, if there's any special rules, and then you get to your mission briefing, which you'll read out loud. Finally, you've got the scenario triggers. So these will tell you when certain events go off on the scenario board that you're going to resolve these events. And there are several of them. They also tell you what the different station and explorer events are, the different search tiles that are in the game. They're going to tell you which one, whenever you draw a tile, you're going to research event 1. It doesn't matter what location it's in. You're going to resolve number 1, and then the second one, you'll resolve number 2, and so on. And then finally, the conclusion. And that'll be all the information you're given for an individual scenario.